in, I calm my mental formations. Breathing out, I calm my mental formations. Breathing in, I am aware of my mind. Breathing out, I am aware of my mind. Breathing in, I make my mind happy. Breathing out, I make my mind happy. Breathing in, I concentrate my mind. Breathing out, I concentrate my mind. Breathing in, I liberate my mind. Breathing out, I liberate my mind. Breathing in, I observe the impermanent nature of all dharmas. Breathing out, I observe the impermanent nature of all dharmas. Breathing in, I observe the disappearance of desire. Breathing out, I observe the disappearance of desire. Breathing in, I observe cessation. Breathing out, I observe cessation. Breathing out, I observe letting go. So those are the 16 practices or the exercises that we will be going through this year. And today specifically, we'll only be going through the first two. Breathing in a long breath, I know I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a long breath, I know I'm breathing out a long breath. And breathing in a short breath, I know I'm breathing in a short breath. And breathing out a short breath, I know I'm breathing out a short breath. Sometimes during meditation, or at least when we're beginning meditation, or trying to develop or advance our meditation, we have these doubts sometimes, right? We have doubts of, is my meditation even working? Am I doing it right? Is this what I'm supposed to be feeling? This is not what I'm supposed to be feeling. Right? We have all these mental ideas and perceptions of what's and what ifs and buts and hows. And sometimes, right, if you're not very disciplined or serious about the practice, we become bored, right? We can become bored. Boredom is one of the 5 hindrances in meditation. And we become bored because as we're meditating on our breathing, for example, right, we're like, I'm just meditating my breathing. Like, my breathing is so boring. Like, I'm just breathing. I'm always breathing, right? Why is it so important? But breathing is our essence. It is how we are alive, right? So we stop breathing and we stop being alive. And so, but we take advantage of our breathing sometimes, right? We don't feel grateful or thankful for our breathing, right? We just assume it's always going to be there, right? If someone comes up behind you and puts a plastic bag over your head, all of a sudden you have no breath, and so you're like, wait a minute, but I have to breathe, right? But breathing is so important, and the Buddha taught breathing specifically, or being mindful of the breath, because it is that important. It is that fundamental to our practice. It is that important because it will lead, as we went through the exercises, to cessation. It will lead to letting go, right? And by letting go and being able to let go of the negative mental formations and poisons of the mind, you become enlightened, right? You can become enlightened. And so that's why he made sure that all his monks and all his disciples and students practice breathing meditation, practice being mindful of the breath. And sometimes we also think that meditation is just sitting down, right? As we went through the last series of the class, right, we have the different techniques and methods of meditation. But we have sometimes this misconception that meditation is only real meditation when we're sitting down, right? Or if we're formally doing walking meditation. But that's not the case. Meditation, what is meditation? Meditation is simply being aware, having awareness, being able to concentrate on a single one-pointedness object, right? So when we're washing our clothes, or doing laundry, or doing the dishes, or cooking, right? Cooking is that one single object washing the dishes is that one single object that we're concentrating on. So this essentially is meditation, right? We don't think of it as meditation because we're not sitting down with our eyes closed and palm in palm, right? But anything we do with concentration, with awareness and mindfulness is meditation, right? And what's the commonality of all these different things that we're doing? All the cleaning, all the cooking, all the sitting, the walking. There's one thing that's common between them all: our breath. We are breathing through all these different scenarios. So that's why the breath, and being mindful of the breath, is so important and so fundamental to our practice. Because it's everywhere that we are. It is in everything that we do. And so these exercises, another misconception that we may have when we read them or listen to them is that they are ways to breathe, right? So when I'm saying breathing a long breath, I know I'm breathing a long breath, or breathing out a short breath, right? This is not to say that you have to breathe in a long breath, or you're breathing out a long breath, or breathe in a short breath, or breathe in a short breath. These exercises aren't necessarily exercises for you to actually do. Exercises is probably not the best word, translated word for this. It should be mindful observance, really what it should be. Because when we are saying breathing in a long breath, I know I'm breathing in a long breath, it isn't saying I need to breathe in a long breath, right? It is saying that as you breathe, how are you breathing? Is your breathing long? Is it short? Is it fast? Is it heavy? Is it, sporadic, right? It's telling you to be mindful of how you're breathing. Because the way you're breathing can tell you a lot about how your body is feeling, right? Because as we go through these exercises, another sutra, the Satipatthana Sutra, or the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, which would be the next topic that we cover hopefully next year, all these exercises lead to the focus and the awareness of the four foundations of mindfulness, which is body, feelings, mind, and mental formations, right? So as we go through these exercises, and usually every about 4, 5 to 6 exercises covers one of the four foundations of mindfulness. So the first 4 for these 16 exercises covers the body, right? So as you're sitting and as you're meditating and how you're breathing, right? If we are aware, for instance, when we're angry, right? The first thing that kind of typically happens is like we feel in our body, we become rigid, we become tensed up, right? And we feel like this heat growing within our body, right? So we feel it in our body first before it comes to our mind, and we start developing these negative thoughts, right? So we'll keep anger here for an example. So as anger may arise, right, and we feel it in our body, then it changes our breathing a little bit, right? Because when we're angry or when we're upset or frustrated, what typically tends to happen is we start breathing heavy, right? We're like, oh, I'm so frustrated, right? Or you start yelling at somebody. And so when we're yelling or we're speaking or we're talking too much, our breathing changes. It becomes longer and heavier because we're needing more oxygen and air within our lungs to hold our breath in order to speak 1,000 words that we're yelling at someone. So if we can observe this anger within our body and within our breathing first, right, and be aware of it and let it go, then we're stopping it from going to the second aspect, which is our mind. Because what happens in our mind is we create these negative thoughts. We create the scenario of how we want to retaliate or how we want to revenge this person, right? And from that thought, then it creates these formations and these perceptions in our mind that every time we see this person or we're at this place, then it automatically brings up these negative thoughts and feelings, right? So then these become negative habits that no matter where we are or how we're feeling, the moment we see someone or we see something that we don't like, it automatically changes our we're able to be aware of it and let it go, the sooner that we can be at peace. Because you can be sitting down now and all of a sudden a negative thought comes up from something that happened this morning or last week or last month or even last year, right? And even these old thoughts and situations that happened a long time ago are still affecting you now, right? So how can you say you're a happy person or your mind is at peace when something that happened 2 years ago still affects you now, right? Because we didn't let go. We didn't give ourselves a chance to look into the situation and see its root cause. Why did it happen? Why do we feel this way? What can we do to change it? Right? What can we do to eliminate those thoughts and feelings? And because we avoided that, and instead we just held on to it and said, I'm going to be angry at this person, at this situation forever, right? I'm just going to keep this grudge forever. But keeping that grudge isn't doing anybody any good, especially yourself, your mind, right? You're just mixing up these minds, your mind, and it's causing such frustration and anger when you're holding on to it. So the Buddha taught us gave us these exercises and said, as you're breathing, as you're watching your breath, right? Because why watching the breath is important? Because let's say you start your meditation, you're at peace, you're breathing normally, you're breathing slowly, right? It's even breaths. But then all of a sudden, that situation that happened 2 years ago comes up, right? Now your breathing is changing. It's getting heavier, it's getting shorter, because now you're thinking of how mad you were, how mad it still makes you. Now your body gets all tensed up, right? So you can feel like the tingling in your body, your shoulders get all tensed, and now your whole session is ruined, right? So we watch our breathing because if we can see the fluctuation, the change in our breathing, the change in our body, and then we can be aware of what's happening, then we can catch it right down there and let it go before it gets any worse, right? Because we've all had situations where we get angry at stupid things for no reason, really, right? It's just because it's different than how we think or how we want things to be, right? Because it's different, because it's not how we want it to be, because it's not how we think things should be, then we get angry about it, right? We get frustrated and say it's wrong when it's subjective. It's wrong to you, but it's not wrong to me. It's not wrong to other people. It's wrong to you, so now you're the only one that's mad here. So is the situation really wrong? Probably not. So the earlier we can identify these types of things, the earlier we can say, hey, this thing's making me angry, right? And this is where I always emphasize the why meditation. So if something does make you angry, what makes you angry, ask yourself why. What are they doing that's making me angry? What are they saying that's making me angry? Why am I becoming angry, right? You're digging through the situation to try to find that root cause, right? Or weeding out those causes that are causing you to become angry. So that way you can find it, root it out, and let it go, and move on, right? If you don't do that, now your one little weed becomes a bush. Your bush becomes a tree, right? And we all know how hard it is to uproot a tree, right? It takes days, many people to do it. So root out that one little strand of roots first before it becomes a tree. Because once it becomes a tree, then it becomes a bad habit, and it can linger for years and years and years, maybe even further, right? And now you're taking that negative karma into your next life. And now your next life has to deal with that karma that you've created. So by being able to become aware the back of your head, right? And you turn around, and maybe it's one of your kids, messing around with you, playing around, right? So it's not an angry situation. Your kids are just playing with you, right? So they're smacking your head, no big deal. But if a stranger comes and smacks on your head, and you turn around and you see it's a stranger, now you're upset because it's a stranger. It's like, why are you hitting my head? Why are you smacking the back of my head? Right? Same energy, just different situation. So we have to be aware of something that causes happiness and something that causes unhappiness. It's the same energy, same situation, or same thing that happened, just the situation is different. One can be your kids smacking you and you're happy about it, one can be a stranger smacking you and you're unhappy about it, right? Same exact thing, but it's our perception of it that causes us to either be happy or unhappy, right? So if we're able to catch that perception, that idea, right, if it is a stranger and typically would make us unhappy or angry, if we just catch it right then and there before we become angry about it and say, why are you hitting me? Who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? Don't you see me sitting here meditating or whatever? Right? Why are you ruining my life? Whatever it may be. All these things are just adding to the unhappiness and the dissatisfaction that's just creating in your mind. So our whole practice, right? The Buddha said to his monks, I only teach you suffering and the cessation of suffering. Right? That is his, if you want to summarize his entire teachings, that is, I am teaching you suffering, I am teaching the cessation of suffering. Right? That is the summary of his entire Dharma, as in those few words. But people don't understand those few words, so now we have hundreds and thousands of different sutras and teachings to help us figure out what that actually means. But really what that means is, I'm spanking on your head. If you become angry or not, or happy, why do you become angry and why do you become happy? Right? Because what makes us happy and what makes us angry are attachments, essentially. Right? Because what makes you happy is your attachment to the thing that makes you happy. Maybe your kids, or the place that you are, that you're at, right? Or the situation that you're in. These are things that we desire to have to make us happy. Right? Or if it's a stranger or some random person, right? Now we're attached to the desire of not wanting to associate with this person or these people, or attachment to not wanting to be smacked in the head by some random stranger, right? So our entire existence, essentially, is revolved around these things that we are attached to, right? And then the three poisons of life, ignorance, greed, and anger. These are the things that make us go crazy, or make us do crazy things, or say crazy things, or just our whole life is revolved around these poisons and to the attachment to our thing, to the things. Even our attachment to Dharma is an attachment, right? The teacher, the monk, the Buddha, who's also a teacher and a monk. The Buddha also explained that, you use the Dharma to help you find alignment, to attain alignment, but don't be attached to the Dharma either, because even the Dharma can have attachments, right? It's simply just a tool. Once you're done with the tool, you give the tool to someone else so they can create their Dharma house. I'm off topic as usual. But these practices or these exercises, they are mindful awarenesses of how we're breathing. Because really, the only time our breathing is pretty steady and consistently is when we're sleeping, right? Unless we're dreaming or having a crazy nightmare, then our breathing fluctuates quite a bit. But essentially, if you notice, when you are exercising or when you're working, doing physical activity or something, what happens when you stop? You start breathing heavy, right? Your body's trying to get back some of that oxygen that's wasted or used up, I guess, right? And so we try to take deep, long breaths to kind of get it back to normal. But what happened there is this external thing happened, right, that caused our breathing to be off course, right? But we don't have to do physical activity in order for that to happen. We can be sitting down and our thoughts can create that change in our breathing, whether it's good thoughts or bad thoughts, right? Even thoughts of hunger, if we're hungry, we're thinking of food, right? And our mouth starts watering up, we're thinking of what we want for lunch or dinner and dessert or whatever, right? Even that excitement can change our breathing. And so the exercises are there to help you become mindful of those changes in the breathing. So whether you're breathing is long or short or fast or steady, right? It's telling you to be aware of the change. So when we go through these exercises, these aren't things I want you to necessarily do. So when we say breathe in a long breath, and breathe in a long breath, and breathe in a short breath, and breathe in a short breath, this is not me saying you need to breathe in long, you need to breathe in short. It's saying that as you're breathing, be mindful of how the breath is. Is the breath long? Is it short? Is it fast? Is it steady? Is it quiet? Is it short? Just give it a quick label, right? You're trying to be one with your breathing. And then as we develop that practice, right? Because typically, like we mentioned earlier, when we become angry or frustrated or just, kind of get rattled up, our body, we feel that tension in our body, we feel the stress, the pressure in our shoulders and our neck, and we become rigid, right? When we become angry. And so once we are able to really develop our breathing practice and be aware and mindful of the changes in breathing, then we can more quickly see the changes in our body as those feelings of good or bad come along, right? Because even happy thoughts can change the tension and pressure in the body. The more or less so, it's the negativity, it's the anger that really creates that tension. So, but we don't typically become aware of it. We don't typically feel that change in our body because it's kind of something that just naturally, normally happens when we become angry. But after we become aware and we're able to practice for a while, being mindful of our breathing, then we can start to see and be mindful of the changes that are happening in our body, right? And we want to do that because, like we said earlier, the feeling of anger first starts in your body, right? So you heat up, and then it becomes a mental formation, it becomes a thought, it becomes an idea, it becomes a daydream of how you're going to revenge this person. So we want to stop that from ever happening. And we can always stop it first from our breathing. Then from the tension, if we can't stop from the breathing, then it goes into the tension and pressure in the body, right? And we want to stop it there. If we can't stop it there, then it goes into a thought, an idea, a mental formation. And then we want to stop it from there. If we can't stop it from there, then it becomes this habit. It becomes this thing that now takes even more effort to eradicate from our mind. So the sooner we can stop that from ever happening, the sooner that we can stop those negative feelings the sooner we can become aware of them from even starting, the quicker we can cut it off and let it go, right? And then we can take that, once we're able to develop that in meditation, we can take that into our everyday life, right? So now that I always use the example of road rage, because you all know I have a little bit of road rage. But once we've developed that in meditation, we take it out into our everyday life, right? And if we are driving the road, right? If we've developed that awareness with our breathing and being aware of how it arises in our body, then when the situation actually happens, right? If someone cuts you off, now it's not as big of a deal than it used to be, right? Maybe now you're like, oh, that didn't bother me as much as it used to. Or maybe not even bother you at all, right? Because now you're aware of the anger that you would normally have before, of someone cutting you off. But now you're able to kind of catch it, right? As it's kind of trickling in your mind before it becomes a whole thought process. And now you're revenging and you're speeding up and cutting them off, right? So that's really the whole purpose of meditation practice, especially in the Anapanasati. It's the whole purpose of being able to catch things as they are sprouting, weed it out before it becomes a whole tree, right? Sometimes it's not very easy, obviously, right? We can't be mindful 24/7, but even if something is already formulating in your mind, even if you're already creating a story, you're creating this vengeance plan, right? Even if you're at that point, if you're able to be aware of it and say, hey, I shouldn't be thinking like this, or this shouldn't really be happening. If at that point you can catch it and weed it out, then you've caught it and weeded it out. You've done what you're supposed to be doing. Because what happens after a thought is a process, it becomes a formation. Now you're saying something negative towards someone, or maybe now you're doing something, right? So if you're able to stop that thought process before you say something bad or do something bad, then you've saved not only yourself, but you've saved other people. You've saved the hurt that you may have caused other people from your speech or your action, because you've caught it as it's formulating in your mind as a thought. But our whole purpose here is trying to catch that before it becomes a thought, right? We catch it as it's kind of like trickling in and making this image, and we want to stop it at that point. So, as we go through the exercises later on, right, and as we practice being aware of our thoughts as they arise, right, we get to the later exercises where, now as we're breathing in, we're feeling the calmness of our body, right? We're feeling how calm we are. We're feeling how we're able to let things go easily, or more easily. We're able to see that our practice, has some fruition to it. We're seeing how we're able to actually concentrate more. We're able to focus more. We're able to retain more of our practice, right? Because if we're a new meditator, or if we're starting out, or you don't practice as often, right? If you don't have disciplined, diligent practice, then your meditation practice is 50-50. It's 50 action meditating, it's 50%. It's 50% doing actual meditation, it's 50% fighting the thoughts that are keeping you from actually meditating, right? So we want to, of course, increase the bucket where we're actually doing meditation and decreasing the thought processes, the distraction, and all the other stuff. And so as we practice this, right, as we add more of these exercises to our practice, the buckets start to level out and our meditation becomes more fluid, more at peace, more calm, more steady, more correct, right? And we've been able to weed out all the distractions. Because even over time, right, even for complete Zen masters, right, they also will have distractions. But the difference between their distraction and your distraction is they're not entertaining their distraction. They're able to acknowledge what's happening and let it go. Versus a new meditator is having a distraction, and now they're playing with the distraction, they're entertaining the thought. They're going with the storyline. They're adding information to the story. So now they're daydreaming. They're not meditating, they're daydreaming, right? So what we need to do is, we may not ever extinguish all thoughts or distractions completely, but we will be able to master how we deal with them when they come up, right? We're not entertaining the thoughts, we're not adding to it, we're not creating a storyline, we're not daydreaming. We acknowledge the thought has arisen, and we're able to cut off and let it go. That is the point of meditation. And eventually, after we've done that, right, it reprograms our mind. Because our mind is like, hey, I don't want you to be calm. I don't want you to be present. I want you to start being angry of the things that happened 2 years ago, and then I want you to start daydreaming about the future, of what you could do. I want you to start of what happened 2 years ago. Your mind doesn't want you to be present. That's why you're always distracted. That's why distractions come up. Because your mind is like, no. I don't want you to be present. That's not what we're supposed to be doing here. So it's us fighting our own mind, right? And as I said last time, what we want to be trying to do is to watch our minds. So we have our mind, and then we have our true mind, right? Our true self is in there somewhere. And so we kind of want to separate the two. And so as we're thinking, or as we're being distracted, we want to be able to, at a point, in a way, to watch that thinking, right? So you're not necessarily acknowledging the thought, or playing with the thought, and you're not letting it go completely, but you're kind of watching it, because you want to see how your mental process works. You want to see how your thinking works. Because if a negative thought, for instance, comes up because of the person that you work with, right? And that's something that always happens. If you're able to watch that thinking and see how your mind reacts to that person, over time you can kind of see what's the word I'm looking for? You can see a pattern of why you think a certain way of this person, right? You want to see this trend. What is the trend that you're creating, right? You want to analyze your thinking, you want to analyze your thought process of this person, of the situation, and the way you're feeling. You want to analyze the situation, try and find the trend here. Why do you feel this way? What makes you feel this way? What are they doing to make you feel this way, right? Maybe it's something, maybe it was the first bad impression that they gave you, and from there on, all of a sudden, every time you see them, you're just negatively thinking of them. You're thinking negatively of them because of their first impression was bad, right? But really, they're a good person. They are hard workers, they're diligent, they're disciplined, they can honest work, whatever it may be. But because of that bad first impression, you won't see those good things of them. You're only going to see the bad things because of that first impression. So, if we are able to watch our thinking and watch our mind and see how our thinking works, we can try to see a trend here. We can see a pattern of why we think a certain way. And then once we kind of see the bigger picture and be able to find and locate that root cause, then we can weed it out and eradicate that cause. And now all of a sudden, the bad thoughts of this person are gone, and we can see the goodness. We can see the good things that they're actually doing. But watching our thinking, watching our mind like that is very difficult. Because we either, one, acknowledge it and let it go, cut it off completely right away, because we're trying to meditate, or we start entertaining it and we start playing with the thought, right? It's typically one of the two things that happen. So it's very difficult to watch it. So that may come later on in our practice, but it's something that we need to keep in mind that we should be eventually doing, because that's really one way of being able to find a root cause of why we feel, think a certain way towards certain people or certain places or things or situations, right? That's the only way we can find a root cause, is by, either meditating on why, or being able to watch those thoughts as they happen and find that trend, find the commonality between all these thoughts. Then that can come later. For now, be aware of the thought and let it go. And being aware, and trying to be aware of our breathing, because our breathing will change when a thought comes up. Whether it's a quick distraction or an intense distraction, our breathing will change. Maybe very subtly, but the breathing will change. So your job now is to watch that breathing as it happens, right? Whether you're able to become aware of the distraction or not, at least be 100% aware of your breathing. Because if your breathing changes, then the light bulb comes up, like, hey, maybe I'm being distracted, maybe there's a thought that's lingering or a feeling that's lingering, right? Maybe it's not a feeling that's lingering, maybe you're just uncomfortable, your body's uncomfortable, right? And so sometimes we want to change position, And as we practice that, right, become more mindful and aware of those changes, then when we go out and we go work, or we just go, hang with friends or family, we're able to quickly, or more quickly, be aware of changes in mood and just mental formations, or maybe we're able to kind of catch them a little quicker than if we were not meditating and being aware of those things. Okay, I'll stop talking. So I don't know how late we started. I think we started
13 after.
Okay, so we're up to some. Okay, so not too bad. So we will have time to at least meditate. So for now, just be mindful of the first two practices. forgot to ask if I had any questions, concerns, or showers before we meditate. Do you have any questions, concerns, or showers? Please let me know.
I think I forgot the sitting posture. Last time you told me like one leg, like what was the half something? Half lotus, yeah. I think I forgot. I didn't do the correct way today.
It's a little bit different with these cushions because they're much smaller than the ones we used to have.
Okay.
So it's very low to the ground. So I'm thinking we have to bring some of those old cushions here on top of these so you're a little bit higher and it's easier to do cross your legs. When you're so close to the ground and you try to put a leg over the other, then there's too much imbalance. Right. Well, like Leon
This gets me up like an inch and a half. And then I got the bean bag on top of that, so it gets my hips up.
Yeah.
Which is helpful.
So how you go off the ground, the more even pressure on your legs and feet they are. So if we're so close to the ground when we try to cross leg, then only our back and one leg has more pressure, and then the other leg that's crossing has no pressure. So then your feet fall asleep much quicker. But if we're evenly balanced, right, when we're sitting and pressure's equal, it's easier to sit.
Yeah.
So Lan's gonna have to remind me to bring some of those cushions.
First time my legs slept today, like in the whole strain, never.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, because I think these are meant to have, like the bean cushion that Leon has, these cushions are meant to have one on top of it. And these cushions are just meant to alleviate some pressure off your knees or ankles. So these aren't meant to sit on by themselves. Unfortunately, we didn't bring any of them bigger cushions. So I'll have to bring some from the home train, and that should make it easier. Because otherwise, if you're sitting and your legs are in pain the whole time, then you can't concentrate because your legs are in pain the whole time.
This has helped me a whole lot, especially this one that just is extra inch and a half.
Helps push you up a little bit.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, I have to bring some of those cushions. At least, especially for the meditation classes, we would sit the whole time. I think it'll help.
I bought one it's like 6 inches and it's too high, so it's just like it kind of throws my whole hips way forward.
Well, see, because I made our seats. Sometimes I made these, and they're not really meant to meditate on. But at the same time, I do meditate on them. I don't ever have to worry about my feet falling asleep. But I'm not able to cross my legs either. So I have to cross my legs on the ground because that's what almost a foot high. So, but that's what the London teacher wanted. So I put on this. All right. Well, next class we'll cover the 3rd and 4th exercise of the 16 exercises. I don't know what date that is, because I never do. second class, our next class